Greetings, everyone. My name is Gabriel, and these are going to be general messages in the form of a grand tableau for the sign of Cancer for the month of December 2019. I've been reading Lenormand for about 7 years now. I started reading for friends, and I was looking on YouTube, and I didn't really see a lot of grand tableau action on YouTube, and I think Lenormand is a great oracle. I think once you learn how to lean into the archetypal message of the cards, and once you learn to lean into your own intuition, I think it's an oracle that you can really do a lot with. So I thought I would take this to YouTube and see what we get. So for Cancer, without much further ado, let's go ahead and begin. All right. For Cancer, December 2019. What are the general messages for the sign of Cancer? December 2019. And these are ready. Try to get these so we can all see them on the frame here. Maybe a little tricky. So we have the fox, book, bear, ship, the child, pardon me here, bouquet, rats, cross, and the sun. The woman card, stork, tree, dog, ring, birds, clouds, moon, and garden. Letter and snake, house, the ways, sometimes called the crossroads, the tower, anchor, mountain, scythe, and the man card. The lilies, fish, the coffin, the rider, stars, key, heart, whip, and clover. Interesting. So I should explain for those of you who are familiar with the Grand Tableau, or who have maybe dabbled, I think, in the Grand Tableau. In a situation like this, I'm reading it a little bit differently. Because I'm reading for a large group of people and we're looking for general messages, I'm bending the rules a little bit. But ultimately, what are the rules, right? They're just suggestions. So normally, in a one-on-one consultation, if the person sitting in front of me were a woman, I would look at the woman and the cards around her. If the person in front of me is a man, we look at the man and the cards around him. Because these are intentionally placed with a wide lens, and we're looking at general, salient, overall themes for the month of December. I kind of just use these as really general markers, general starting places. If you're a man and you notice that, some of the signatures that I give that are branching from the woman card apply to you, that's totally fine. That's to be expected, and vice versa for the man card. The first thing that really jumps out to me this month, I think it could be really possible that you're receiving. You need to make sure that what you're saying and the actions that you're putting out into the world, the way you're treating other people, the things you're deciding to say and not say, your intentions are straightforward and to the point. That phrase, speak plainly and put the devil to shame, comes to mind here. I think you're in a position where you're really seeing the writing on the wall with, I think it's in general in our personal relationship. I think it could be very possible that many of you Cancer people are kind of having some misgivings around the people that you've surrounded yourself with. And I think it could be that way for a while. I think you should expect to see some fluctuation in your social circle this month. The Fox is a card of double dealings. It's also a very wise card. It's a card of planning. The Fox is a hustler, I think the Fox also can signify somebody who is very comfortable and very able to kind of forge their own path. And I think, in a social context, in a social situation, I think that could be maybe exhibiting the self-agency to drop some of these friends that maybe aren't really good for you. Or maybe they're not really aligned with who you are anymore. Over here we have the Garden, which is the card that represents the public self. It's also right above one of the other significators here. Below that significator, we see the Clover, which represents a specific period in time. It's kind of a window. The Sun up here represents clarity. It kind of makes me think that, similar to this situation that we see on the other side, you're finding yourself having these windows of clarity, this small kind of aha moment where you're questioning specifically your public life, your social life, the people that you have surrounded yourself with, and you're really ready to make some excisions where you cut away the fat. Anything that really doesn't mean anything to you in a social context, you're really ready to get rid of that, pardon me. I'm not going to lie to you, I've got to give it to you straight. I don't think it's going to be a really good month for relationships. For those of you who are in relationships, I think you need to become adept at radiating love towards yourself. You need to become really, really good at self-love. You need to become rooted in self-care this month. I think, we have the heart card here, which represents really all of the emotions of the heart, the entire spectrum, everything that you can possibly feel. And surrounded, we have Whip, Scythe, and Mountain. The Mountain brings about ideas of isolation. It's heavy, it's very dense. It's not something that's easy to maneuver through. Whip is going to be repetitive. It's also something that's very disciplined. It's structure. It's something that is perhaps even argumentative. And then Scythe is a quickness, right? It's separating. When you think about what a scythe does, it separates the wheat from the chaff. I think you need to be really honest with yourself with the emotions that you're feeling this month. And then also be prepared to sit with them for a good amount of time. I think over here, we see the potentiality for you and the eagerness with you, for you to make drastic changes. Up here, we have mice, and then the cross. And then just below the mice, we have the clouds. Um, to me, those kind of speak towards kind of that ruminating depression, anxiety. I mean, maybe depression with a capital D is a pretty heavy word, but it's definitely that kind of gnawing, nagging sensation that you know that something isn't right in your personal life, in your relationship life. You know that you have an unfulfilled need, you have an unmet need, and it's really gnawing at you. It's kind of backed you into the corner. That's kind of like the feeling, right? The cross is it's a critical period. It's something that you really can't escape from. I've said it before in other readings. It's almost like that hanged man energy. There's nowhere you can go. You are nailed to the cross, and this is the karma that you have to deal with right now. The sun for me has a lot to do with cognition. It's understanding the things the way they are. It's seeing things the way they are. Ultimately, it is a positive card, and it kind of ameliorates the cards around it. But ultimately, I think you understand that there is a decision to be made. Perhaps a variety of decisions. And I think you're really ready for a new start. Here we have child, and we have the ship. The ship is about venturing off. It also brings to mind ideas of yearning, right? Wish. I don't think you really are very afraid of making a new start. There's kind of that, I think after you only take so much, you're just really ready to just start completely new. New loyalties, new decisions, new friends, new commitments. And obviously, all of these feelings are all very well and good. I think we've all felt unfulfilled needs to the extent that we're ready to make drastic changes, right? Whether it be a breakup or whether it be putting new guide rails on some type of relationship or friendship. We've all kind of been in that situation, but the most important thing that you can do before you really do anything is to learn how to sit with that and to learn how to sit with that energy, right? The mountain, the negative side, all of these cards, there's a rose and a thorn for any of these cards. And the rose of the mountain card is kind of the same as the thorn. It's the isolation. It's learning to be with yourself and your present experience and the shifting mind states. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Before you really act on them in a brash way. Down here we see your heart is surrounded by lots of feelings of pain, emotion, kind of like a hot, prickly type feeling. I really think that that's something you're going to be quite familiar with this month. Honestly, probably it's something you felt for a while. But before you start cutting people out of your life, before you start having difficult conversations, my advice would be to sit and wait. Think about what you're actually feeling, what the core is, right? What the root emotion is. What is the unmet need? It's obviously going to be different for everybody, but I think this kind of quadrant of the spread seems to speak to a desire to make drastic changes, the feeling of needing to make drastic changes, the desperation of not wanting to feel what maybe you've been feeling for a little while. The wanting to get out and meet new people, to start new things, new friendships. But ultimately, before you do that, you owe it to yourself to take a good, long, hard look at what you're actually feeling. What's at the root, right? Hmm. I think in terms of work, I think there are a lot of positive signs for work. Really. I mean, especially if you're really in a field where you're able to make your own schedule, or perhaps you're doing some type of contract work. I think a lot of you cancers could find yourself maybe transitioning to a work from home type job. For those of you who are maybe working for tips, bartendering, waitering, something like that. Or maybe you have a small business, or maybe not small, I shouldn't say small, or a business essentially where you are your own boss. I think it's a good month for that. It's a good month to actually maybe pursue some type of deeper learning, some type of certification in something like that. Um, Going back to the examples that I was giving before, if you're a bartender, maybe doing some type of, I don't know, wine certification. If you're a masseuse, maybe perhaps some type of, investigating some type of deeper learning in that area. If you are your own boss, this is a good month to invest in yourself, in your skill set, and in your own learning. It's a good month to make those positive changes. Kind of like what I said at the beginning. The fox, the rose, if we're looking at the rose and the thorn of each of each of the cards, the rose of the fox would be its ingenuity, would be it's the hustler, it's the card that's able to figure things out with its charming personality. The thorn would be maybe double dealing, um, would be maybe going behind your employer's back. I would say definitely watch out for those this month as well. Perhaps those are the unmet needs that we're actually seeing in this part. And if that's the case, like what I said before, take a minute, look at what those needs actually are, look at how you are compensating, and then maybe that'll kind of give you a sense of direction with which you can approach your employer. And for those of you who are not in roles like that, for those of you who work maybe typical more 9 to 5 type jobs, it's a good month for you to flex your creative muscles at work. I think it's a month where you're going to have a great deal of confidence, perhaps um, maybe a little too much so at times. But it's definitely a month where you're going to feel empowered to say things, to speak up, right? To put your ideas forward. I think that these are things that you've actually had for quite some time. I think they've been growing with you for quite some time. And I think you're finally getting to that place where you're able to voice your ideas, where you're able to voice your opinions. It's amazing because this is all kind of circling back to what we saw here, right? It's really just another variation of this type energy. Perhaps, if we're kind of softening the lens with which we're looking at these challenging emotions, these, unmet needs, these wanting to react type triggers, it could just be perhaps at work you have an idea of a way that something could be more efficient. Um, kind of a suggestion for some type of best practices change. And it's something that you've been sitting with for a while. And I think it's going to be a really, really good month for you to actually voice that. Another one of the significations, actually both of the stork in some ways. The stork has kind of a nurturing quality, and also the tree is, a tree is something that grows, right? It reaches upward and outward and it branches. And both of those kind of have a nurturing type quality. They encourage you to plant something now, because whatever you plant now is going to grow. You just need to be really, really focused on what you're actually planting. Ultimately, something that I heard recently that I really, really love, the word karma has been kind of co-opted and it's made into this really, really pop culture complex thing. Ultimately, karma is just, a fancy way of saying habituation. Whatever you're doing, you're getting better at it. Whether it be harboring difficult emotions, you're getting better at it. Maybe it's expressing your creativity in your job, or with how you produce money, with your ingenuity. I think karma and reaping the benefits of your karma is going to be a main thing this month. It's something that has a lot of power. Or rather, I should say, karma is obviously always a main thing. We're always reaping what we sow. But I think it's going to be a month where you feel like you have a lot of power over your karma, over the things that you're habituating, over what you're getting better at. You feel like you can flex those muscles and make real changes. There's a great deal of power this month, and I think it's going to be a short-term thing. In a very practical sense, I think it's definitely a month to save your money. It's not a month to splurge or to spend or to self-care in the ways that require you to spend money, to be really frank. Now is a time to save. Be very, very spendthrift. I think that's wise. Here we have lilies, which is a calm, cooling energy. And then fish represents prosperity. It's also cash flow, your money itself. Whereas anchor is your job or your career, in the sense of how you spend most of your time. Your actual money and money flowing in is going to be the fish. I think the message for you, when we look letter, which is the message, fish, which is your money, the message for you is you need to be really, really calm and cool before you make any purchase, before you dig into that Amazon wish list. And I forget, obviously, for those of you who celebrate Christmas, it's the month of Christmas. You need to be really, really wise with how you're spending your money this Christmas. Let's see. Ultimately, though, and this sounds like such a cop-out, I think you are going to make the wisest decision. So here we have the rider, which is things that are coming into your life, things that are being made manifest now. The rider is in the 31st sign, which relates it directly to the sun. And just below that figure is the crossroads, which represents your choice, right? What you will choose to do. Ultimately, I think you are going to make the greatest decision, or the best decision for you, the most thought out decision, the wisest decision. I think it's a very powerful month. There's a lot of potentiality this month. The things that you say and do right now matter. And I think that ultimately comes from a place of, I mean, you know that there has to be a change. Things cannot continue the way that they're going now. I think these are positive signs, Cancer. Ultimately, I think one of the best things that we can ever see in any type of reading, right? One of the most powerful, most affirming messages that you can receive is that of something that reaffirms your own self-agency. What you do now does matter, and you are going to see those benefits. You're going to see those changes, the effect of your decisions almost immediately. But you definitely need to take a moment to commit to your own intuition, commit to your own looking at your own internal landscape. Venturing into the things that you need. The last thing that I always like to do in any of these grand tableau readings, whether it be something like this where it's for a whole lot of people and with a really wide focus, or kind of a one-on-one thing, I always look at the four corners, because those are kind of like the key points of the reading, the cornerstones, right? The blocks that kind of hold all of it together. And so we have the fox, sun, clover, and lily. The fox kind of speaks, like we said, ingenuity. In its shadow side, I think it can do a lot of damage with, double dealings, thinking too much and saying the wrong things. The sun, and its positive side, its vitality, it makes things grow. Warmth. And its shadow side, it's too much heat, too much anger that burns you up. Clover signifies how unique this time period is, right? Sometimes, I think in the ancient texts, like the old books, the clover is always referred to as little luck, right? And in that, it signifies a short time period, right? This is a very unique time period. And then we have lilies down here. Calm, cool, collected, reserved, removed. I think ultimately, if you're able to remove yourself from acting out brashly with too much heat or with too much vitriol, I think you're going to be able to make the best use of the unique energy that I think is in the air this month. Powerful cards. Very cool. Well, Cancer, I hope that this helped. I hope that this gave you a little bit of a sense of direction. Again, my name is Gabriel. I'm newer here, so I'm definitely still kind of getting myself situated. You'll have to pardon the awkward camera angle, but definitely keep checking back. I'm going to keep doing these grand tableaus. In addition to Lenormand, which is definitely one of my favorite oracles, I also read something called Vera Sibilla, which is an Italian 18th century oracle, and then also Marseille-style tarot as well. So those may be in the works as well. I hope you have a great month. Sending you all of my good vibes. I'll see you next time.